All right, today we got a very special guest in the house, a living legend in music and a man of the community, Mr. Do-It-All from the Lords of the Underground. How you doing today, bro?
Thought I'd get my own air horn. What up, man?
How you doing today?
Man, I'm good, man. Hustling like a 70s dance.
Okay. It's an honor to meet you today and chop it up. So when I do interviews, I like to get people's story from the very beginning. So you were born in New Jersey, is that right?
Born and raised in Newark, New Jersey, in the West Ward of Newark, New Jersey.
Wow. So what kind of a household did you grow up in?
I grew up in a single parent home with my mother being the head of the household. You know, we always hear typically about men are the head of the household. My dad wasn't there, so you know, my mom's really raised me, and I got to give credit to my stepdad too, who was there for a partial bit of that time. But you know, I grew up to a strong woman. Um, in a household who wanted nothing but the best for her son, and she taught him through you know, kind of hard nose, you know, just making sure that he earned every bit of his way. And you know, I have to salute her for that because she taught me what strength was, and you know, she taught me how to become a man of the household, but she couldn't teach me how to be a man. You know, so even though she taught me everything that was great from a woman's perspective, she couldn't teach me how to be a man. I had to go out and find those mentors who looked like me, and I had to go out and find the people who were doing the things that I wanted to become. I had to become that person uh, without her in that sense.
Right. So you had the experience that many people in the inner city have, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And so like growing up, were you looking to like the rappers on TV, the hustlers as those mentors for you?
Nah, I think more so my mentors were mentors that were in my neighborhood, you know, mentors who were fighting for our culture. So most of my mentors were either locked up or killed. They were in jail, killed, or they stood in my area. I took a lot of parts to make up the whole when it comes to mentorship and leadership that I follow. So like one of my favorite rappers is a guy from my way. Man, I mean, he was just amazing. He stood on the block. He dressed fly. He looked fly. He spit the illest bars, and he's the one who inspired Do It All to become the MC that he was. But nobody ever heard of him, and his name was Shake. We called him Shake, you know. And Shake never made a record, but Shake, in my era of coming up in the mid '80s, late '80s, before I got on, he's the rapper that inspired me to dress fly, look fly, and be fly as an MC. But nobody ever heard of him. But that's one of my mentors. And then you had other people who was like the chief of staff to a councilman in my neighborhood who became Lords of the Underground's manager. He taught me about what it is to read books and listen to music that change your mindset and explore your mind. And you know, then I had a Nigerian teacher who taught me what manhood was and how to be amongst others and still stand out. You know, so my inspiration and influences didn't just come from the gangsters and phony characters on TV. It came from the real life movie. It came from real life characters in my neighborhood, in my community.
That's beautiful because it seems like you have a wide array of influences growing up that really help shape your character, right?
Right. I think though too, just to be clear, you know, I think influence is powerful. You know, that's what I've learned growing up in my community and traveling the world is that influence is powerful. But what I learned is that inspiration to me is more powerful, you know, because influence, I noticed when I was influenced by someone, I was under the influence, right? And when you're under the influence of anything or anyone, you're not really yourself. you're as if or like or just like him or her. But when you're inspired, when it's inspiration and you're inspired, you're in spirit with the thing, the it that makes it move. And we say God, some people say the universe, some people say a vibe or whatever it is. But when you're in spirit with something, you're in tune. You're in tune with this vibration and it carries further.
I love that you went ahead and broke that down, the difference, because like you said, it is when you are inspired, it's usually positive. When you're influenced, sometimes it has more of a negative connotation to that.
Right, right. Influence can be, just like negative, it attracts, everything, right? It attracts negative, it attracts positive, it attracts everything. But
Right.
positive attracts positive.
So, did you grow up with any siblings, or was it just you in the household?
No, I grew up with siblings. Like I said, my stepfather, rest in peace. He was there for a little while, and even through the divorce with my mom, he never stopped being my father. So he had children that came with the already blended family. They became my stepbrothers and sisters. But him and my mother also had another child, which was my sister, and then my biological father had a son as well. So I have a array of brothers and sisters, who I still keep in touch with today. One has passed, but I still my brothers and sisters, whether step or not, they're my brothers and sisters. We've built a relationship that still lasts on to this day.
Right, right. How would you describe yourself as a kid? Like, were you into sports, or did you show an early interest in music already?
Oh yeah, I was somebody who already knew everything. I should have been know it all instead of doing and at least I thought I knew it all. I love sports. I was a big baseball fan. I actually thought I would be a New York Yankee before I became a hip hop artist.
Wow.
Um, I played basketball. I played football. I played all of those type of things that young black men play coming up in the urban communities, and I fell in love with those type of sports. Um, I was also a type of guy who loved business. We didn't have the catchword of entrepreneurship back then. We didn't say that as much. But I was a young entrepreneur. I was always the guy who we had corner stores on each end of our block. One owned by a black family named Mr. Thomas, the other owned by some Latinos brothers. And I would go down to each store and I would ask questions, and I guess Mr. Thomas had initially thought I was being a pest, but when I see that truck, that cakes truck pull up with all of the cakes, or the Bonton, that back then Bonton potato chips, or the Wise potato chips truck pull up, I wanted to know, how did you just get all of that stuff off of the truck, put it in your store, and I didn't see any money exchanged, or I'm paying attention like that. And he's the one who schooled me and taught me, what inventory is and intake, and all of that type of stuff. So I was one that was about my business, and mind you, I didn't know. It was just interest. As a youth, you don't really know that the thing that you're interested in has this title to it, or it's called this, or this is the term for it. You just know what you like and what you don't like. So as it's not until I got older that I respected those moves and understand what I was doing.
Right. It's amazing that you were so inquisitive at such a young age, wanting to know how things work,
Right, right,
and
definitely.
and I'm sure that that really helped you later on in life.
Yeah, it really did. It's still to this day.
So Jersey is a really tough place. It's not no walk in the park. How do you think growing up in Jersey helped shape you as a person?
Oh man, I think it rounded off the edges. All of those sharp nicks on the corner. It definitely sanded them down. I think that growing up in Newark, New Jersey, and growing up to a single mother in a city like Newark, New Jersey, in the West Ward, it can be difficult because It's not until you get older and you become a parent that you realize what your parent had to go through when they went to work, and you had to maneuver as a 10-year-old through the ills and the vices of the things that were going on in your neighborhood, in your community, which also probably later on played a part of me understanding my community on a different level than others. Because when you maneuver through a certain place, you find its valleys, you find its peaks, you find the dark spots, you find the bright spots, you find a way to walk like no one has ever walked through your community, and you find how to be respected, and you learn how to become a man by dealing with men who are out in the community. So, growing up in Newark, New Jersey made me who I am.
That's a fact. And you know, when you become a parent, you're more forgiving of your own parents and their shortcomings because you realize how difficult it is. It's the most difficult job you could ever have. Literally everything you do affects another human being.
Right, right. Sometimes you don't realize how, you would tell your baby at 18, don't go there, or I don't know if I could let a 10-year-old walk some of the paths that I've walked 10-year-old.
When you think about it, you're like, well, I went and did this at this age, but it sounds ridiculous or crazy to allow my own child to do that
Right,
at this age now.
right, right.
So, do you remember the moment that you fell in love with hip hop?
Yes, 1979. I lived in Irvington, New Jersey, 223 21st Street, right off of Grove Street. My mother had an extra room. At this time, is she's married to my stepdad, who's my father forever. I have his last name. He adopted me at 8 years old. Um, and at this time, her brother was coming home from the army. Uncle Darrell, we called him Rob. The streets called him Rob Bean. And we had an extra room. He came into the extra room, and he bought this 12-inch record with him called Rapper's Delight.
Oh
And
man.
he played it over and over again. And at this time, this is old school, but he used to fight praying mantis in a shoebox, and I would smell a funny aroma coming out his room, and the music. So the music that was coming out of the back of the house was different than the music that was coming out the front of the house. So the front of the house was Patti LaBelle, it was Evelyn Champagne King, it was Sam and Dave, it was Marvin Gaye, it was James Brown, it was all of those people. But at the back of the house, it was a hip hop to the hippie to the hippie to hip hop, So I wanted to understand what that was. And by finding out what that was, I started to delve and dive more into the culture and understood what graffiti was, and later found out that the record that I loved that introduced me to something that I love, the culture that I love, wasn't even written. One of the verses wasn't even written by them. So it just was intriguing. I wanted to be a part of this culture. I wanted to make something out of nothing as these guys did, because these guys, it was more relatable to me. The
Right.
living room was about love and breakup and heartbreak, in the back room it was about making something out of nothing.
And that's amazing because when you think about it, the front of the house was playing the music that would get sampled
Most
by
definitely.
the artist in the back of the house, right?
Right.
So did you hear the do it yourself version? Like did you ever play that and try to rap over it?
No, I don't think I did, but I'm sure I probably have. I'm sure that the instrumental played, and we tried to freestyle and battle each other. But I'll tell you what it did do for me. That record in the back of the house made me go down to Newark Penn Station, which was seemed as a little child at 10 years old. Seemed so far away. I don't even know how I made it down to Penn Station, let alone to get on the train and go through the turnstiles and go over to New York City and stand out in front of those clubs and look for people, look for the address on the back of the records. And, it made me search for the culture at a young age. And my mother did not know this. So I'm sure if she knew her 10-year-old was catching the subway over to New York City in search of the hip hop culture, she would have had something to say about it and probably halted me from something that changed her life.
So at that young age, did you start out doing graffiti first, breakdancing, or you immediately fell in love with touching the mic?
Oh no, I tried everything. I tried everything. I fell in love with the culture first. I fell
Right.
in love with the music is what attracted me to the culture. Rappers Delight attracted me to the culture. But once I got to the culture, oh, they have graffiti. Oh, they pass messages from train to train to send through the neighborhoods. Okay, let me try this. My penmanship was horrible. So okay, okay, let me try. Oh, word, they got b boys and b girls, which was really the fashion people. The b boys and b girls, they were because they were the dancers too. So they always had the fly windbreakers, the spray painted jackets on because they wanted to look fly when they were dancing. They had the fly pumas and sneakers on, So let me dress like this. Okay, let me dance like this. I wasn't a great break dancer. My windmill wasn't quite windmilling. So I had to, the popping was a little better. But I do know when in DJing, my mother wouldn't let me scratch up her records on them curved arm turntables
Right. The needles
that
weren't
had
built
the
for that.
Nah, that had the arm where the record drops down on the other record after the one finish. So I wasn't good at DJing either. But one thing I did know is that I could galvanize people when I spoke. I can galvanize when I put rhymes together. I can galvanize people and draw attention from people with my words, my wordplay. So when I controlled the crowd, it was different, and it made me understand. It's almost like having girlfriends, right? I tried to date graffiti, it just didn't work out. I met this girl named DJ, and she was cool and all that, but she was noisy and too loud for me. And then I met this girl called breakdancing, but she kept me on my back all the time, and I couldn't quite, I couldn't quite get it right. But this girl who was the MC, you know, it was just like a match made in heaven, and it made me marry the culture of hip hop.
That's like one of the best ways I've ever heard someone describe the elements of hip hop. That's amazing. Like how you figured that out. And that seems like such a different time. Is so excited, like so much excitement about something that is still new, still being developed, right? Like, what was that like for you to see the growth of it over that time period?
Oh, it was amazing. It made you realize that you didn't make a mistake by falling in love. You know what I mean? It make you, even with the ups and downs, if you can stick through it through the narrative that people tried to paint about it, if you can stick through it through its ups and downs, if you can stick through it without being accepted in the mainstream, when you with somebody doing its ills and doing its down stages, you want to be part of its renaissance,
Right.
right? So when it explodes and when it becomes successful, that's why Tata can walk next to JJ and Jay Z and feel confident because he was there when he was nothing.
You got it out the
That's
mud.
why, right? When you get it out the mud and you eating lobster and whether you eat seafood or not, but you're eating great and you're in great places. I've done this with my crew, with Funky Man and DJ L.O.T.U.G all around the world. And sometimes we bask in the moment and I just stop and I say, bro, look at that over there. And he's like, what? And I say, look at that right there. He be like, the sunshine? I said, yeah, you on a yacht. We in the Mediterranean. We from number blocks. You from the boulevard. And he go, oh, the word.
Yeah. So speaking about that, how did Lords of the Underground become a group?
We became a group from my DJ Lord Jazz. We met in Shaw University. And when we met, Lord Jazz was the number one DJ on campus. He DJ'd all of the functions, all of the
Wow.
parties. So he was called Jazzy A back then. But his best friend was graduating. His best friend, Lord Jazz is from Cleveland, Ohio. His best friend is from Los Angeles. And he was a blood. That was like one of my first time really meeting the blood, from the gang culture. So, but this blood just happened to be Marley Marl's cousin. And my DJ, well, who soon will become my DJ, Jazzy A's best friend in college at Shaw University in Raleigh, North Carolina. And Derek L.A. Jackson, who went on to be Find the Roots, who went on to manage Coolio, who went on to discover Scott Storch. You know, he said that I'm going to work from, he told his best friend, Lord Jazz, I'm going to work for my cousin Marley Marl when I get out of college. So when I get there, you need to find a group while I'm there and present them to me so I can present them to Marley. That group of Do It All and Funky Man became Lords of the Underground.
If you had to name like one favorite experience that you were a part of in hip hop, what would that be?
The favorite experience that I was a part of in hip hop, um, there's so many, but I would say the influence that we had on others, the inspiration that we had on others, that's my favorite part. Even if they never gave of our propers, even if they never said you did this, I know we've inspired people because some of them have said it. And I've seen it in the way that they walk, they talk. That means that the impact that I brought to the game of hip hop sparked other people who can make even greater impacts. And it will keep going on because they will continue to spark others that I might not have never meet. You know, so that is my favorite part of hip hop, the influence, the thing that we brought to the game, how it influenced and impacted other artists to be even greater than us.
Right, most definitely. It's kind of like how Pac said, like, you know, I may not be the one that changes the world, but I will spark the brain that will, right? It's kind of like that whole thing.
Super facts. Super facts.
So you grew up with Redman, is that right?
Yeah, shout out to Mr. Reggie Noble, Mr. Green.
And how old were you guys when you guys met?
You know, I know that I moved in that area when I was 11. Redman always says 13. So I would say around 11 to 13 years old, in between that age. Maybe we didn't become real tight until 13, but I moved around that area around 11 years old. You talking about a young, fat Reggie Noble, and you talk, or chubby Reggie Noble, and you talking about
That's
a
kind of
real
hard
skinny,
to imagine. That's hard
right,
to imagine him like that.
right, and a real skinny do it all.
So at that young age, was he already into music like you were? Were you guys already bonding over it together?
Yeah, I think that's how we really became tight. He was DJing. He wasn't really rapping. He was DJing. He became and shout out to Two Tech Les because he was a group with Reggie too before me, but he was DJing for me. I was the rapper going around the entire city of Newark, battling everybody, representing 19th Street, excuse me, representing 19th Street. Reggie was from 20th Street. And then on the other side, right across the city line in East Orange, Tretch was on 18th Street. So you had 18th Street Tretch, 19th Street Do It All, 20th Street Redman. And he just became my DJ. And being on stage, he just became one of the illest freestylers. So we used to do a set where he would rap and DJ at the same time. And a lot of times it was off his dome. And he just became one of the illest MCs, man. And still is one of the dopest DJs, too.
That's crazy because you know that's a totally different skill set when you can do it off the top.
That's right, man. It's like playing a guitar. I looked at it like it's no difference between him playing a guitar and singing. I looked at that the same way. He
Right.
DJ'd and rapped at the same time.
And like you were saying that like within such close proximity, Tretch was there, you were there, and Redman is so it's like, man, so much talent in such a small place.
Hey, man, vibrations are real. And when they're so close together, they cause great ripples, big ripples. And we were too close together not to make a wave.
Right. And at that young age, did you already realize that Redman was going to become one of the illest?
No, I just knew we all had something special. I just thought, no, let me take it back. Yeah, I did. I just didn't know it would be MC. You know, we spoke things into existence. Man, you just gave me chills because I remember sitting on the porch with Red and we talked about how we were going to be big in the music business. But remember, he was my DJ, so we said we. We would be big in the music business, and once we become big in the music business, we would come back to our neighborhoods and create community groups and youth initiatives and programs, and that's exactly what we're doing.
Isn't that crazy when you can like look back at special moments in your life like that and how it's like foreshadowing what's going to
Yeah,
happen in the future?
yeah, man. It seems like you're just talking when you're talking, but when
Right.
you're talking and it becomes a reality, you realize that you talked it into existence,
Exactly. Manifestation, right?
right? Believe it or not.
So were you really close with Tretch during that time, or you guys just knew each other?
Well, Tretch wanted to get Redman because Redman always used to say he wanted to rob KG because KG was the one who had cars and jewelry and a big flat top. And Redman used to always say, "I want to rob KG." In some kind of way, Tretch was security for Ill-Town back then. He was Tiny T. He was the one always getting into the fights. So he was the protector, and he was a dope spitter. So he's a loyal guy. He wasn't gonna let anybody talk about, his people. And it was just to fast forward, we got in a situation where we all became cool. Once they came out with music, I won't forget. I'm driving through 18th Street, and Tretch made my car stop. Had people stop my car and came over to the car and asked, "Where's Redman?" And it wasn't a nice "Where's Redman?" It's like, where's Reggie Noble at? And this is before we came out with music. And then when we got out with music, everything became love. Man, when I talk about Redman, Tretch, and Do It All, those are three brothers right there that are really from our neighborhoods, that we know each other's mothers and wives and children, and all of that type of stuff. This It's a true brotherhood. You can't pick your relatives, but you definitely could pick your family, and Tretch and Redman are definitely family.
And that's a beautiful thing to see where you guys came from and all become successful.
Yeah, it's bigger than us, man. It was in the cards, man. As long as we followed the blueprint of the universe, and spoke things into existence like we did, it was bound to be this and more.
And you came up battle rapping, right?
Yeah, I used to battle sometimes. Yeah, I used to tear the frame out of MCs at Newark Tech hallways. You know, yeah,
What years are we talking
we
about?
talking about 85 to 89.
Wow.
And I'm saying that loudly so people, if they say no, I'm saying it loudly. 85 to 89. Anybody in those North Tech hallways, anybody at them YMCA parties on Broad Street when we had the Oshkosh pullovers on and all of that. Anybody on 19th Street, South Orange Avenue, 13th Avenue, one deuce between 85 and 89. Anybody at Club 88 in East Orange, they know what it was. That's how I got my name up.
Yeah, and I see you channeling that old Do It All right there.
Yeah, I might have to call this interview Bandana Do.
So at that time, was battle rap like personal, or was just who had the best rhymes and could win over the crowd?
It was not like it is today. It was who had the best rhymes. But I will say this, that New Jersey MCs always pride themselves on lyrics. You had to say something. You had to be, and you had to express it. And I was more of an MC. I was more of the Run of Run DMC. Run might not
Mm.
get put on anybody's, top lyricist list, but when you talk about just MC in a party, whose house? No, whose house is? That was me. I made sure and demanded the attention as the MC of the room. So I was an MC, man, and my lyricist. When you talk about complex, putting bars together, lyrics, that's a Tretch. When you talk about body, gut hitting, bars, you're talking Redman.
Right. And how do you feel about the way that battle rap has evolved into what it is today?
I love it. I love it. I'm a fan. I am a fan, man. So I love it. I really love that it turned into I mean, I know it's the dozens, it's going at each other, it's all that, it's downright disrespectful at times,
Right.
but but I actually like it. I like it because it takes that aggression of black young men and other men who could be taking that aggression and then using it in different ways in the community that can be a negative impact. So now it puts money in their pockets. It creates an entertainment portion of it that causes camaraderie of people who are in that field. It's like a fraternity. It's like a brotherhood because not everybody can do it. Not even the people that make records. So I salute them all the way.
That's a fact. It's a totally different skill set because it's not just about the lyrics, but the way that you pause, the way you perform it. You know, a lot of people say it's almost like Shakespearean, the way that you get up on the stage and you do that. You know, I think that battle rap is like one of the purest forms of hip hop because it's really genuinely just about the bars, right?
Yeah,
Like I ride around in my car and listen to battles, you know, like that's how much I love it. It's an amazing thing the way that you see the way that they put it together, and they definitely don't get the props that they deserve.
yeah, yeah. I agree. Who's your favorite battle rapper?
Oh man, you know, like Math used to be my favorite, one of my
Math
favorites
is dope.
before. He's definitely up there, but you know, Murda, Loaded
I
Lux, they
mean,
yeah,
them the goats. Murder,
right, yeah. I
loaded,
mean,
the goats.
you
You
gonna
know.
get this work, right?
Yeah,
You
you gonna
know?
get this work.
Yeah, but you know, I think it's amazing too when you see like people like Cassidy go back into the game and
Mhm.
really put in that work as well. Um,
Shout out to
Ness,
Cass
a
too.
lot of people.
Yeah, shout out to Cass. I did a song with him a couple of years ago, man. It was dope. Cass is definitely one of the rare farms. He Bo Jackson the game.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know.
And I think that is crazy when he battled Disaster and they didn't do it on the stage, but they did it in the parking lot. What was it? No,
Mhm.
yeah, the parking structure. Like
Yeah, the
that's like
parking structure. Yeah,
real hip hop. You know what I mean? Like you can't get any more raw than that. That's crazy.
super facts.
When you guys started to experience success, right? Like what would you say, what was that feeling like? And was it surreal for you?
Yeah, it was surreal. Sometimes you don't, when you're in the moment, you don't really notice the moment or the history that you're making. Right before I got my deal, I had got into some trouble joyriding with some friends around my way that had me possibly looking at some time. And the disgust that I seen on my mother's face hurt me so much that I promised that I would turn that, I mean, it sounds cheesy, but turn that frown upside down type of thing. But the disgust, I wanted to turn that disgust into something that was joyful. And me having success through hip hop, buying her a home and giving her the keys to her home and seeing her face, that day made me go, wow, I did this off of words, and it changed. That disgust turned into joy. So it was definitely opposite ends of the spectrum, and it was just amazing feeling for me, man. So that's when I knew I really had success. I mean, in the layman's terms, man, we went away to Chicago one weekend and we didn't come back to 3 months later. So when we came back, I remember going to the chicken shack. I'm still not thinking we're famous or anything, but we've been going for almost a month. I go to the chicken shack with my manager. He has a Jaguar. I'm leaning on a Jaguar, eating some chicken in front of the chicken shack, and the guy on South Orange Avenue and Bergen Street, the chicken shack is still there, and I am now the councilman of that area. Was looking at
Wow.
me, and he's looking at me. And back then, if somebody's looking at you that hard, it's a problem. So initially, I say to him, "Yo, what you looking at?" And probably not so nice, but what you looking at? You got a problem with me? And his face was kind of startled, like. And my manager came out, apologized to the guy, pulled me to the side, and said, "What is the matter with you? He looking at you because he see you on TV every day." And I was like, I was working so much that I didn't even realize our record was being played on the radio in rotation. Our video was on everything moving when it comes to videos. So I didn't realize it, you know. And when he said that to me, that was another time that made me realize, like, wow, we really doing this.
You know, it's amazing because when you're growing up in that kind of environment, the conditioning that you receive as far as this is how you handle these type of situations, and the more that you start to leave the block per se, leave the hood, or go travel, and your worldly view starts to open up, right? The things that you experience help shape you in a different way, that quite possibly a lot of people don't think that they'll ever get to experience. So I think that your description of that is amazing because it is definitely a learning moment for you.
Definitely a learning moment. Traveling, you know, I went to college. I went to Shaw University in Raleigh, North Carolina, which was an amazing experience. But the place where I've learned the most, you know, they say that the colleges gives out life credits now, right? Well, the place that I got most of my credits from was traveling the world. I've learned more, man, I've learned so many things about life from traveling. And I'm glad you pointed that out because the conditioning that we go through, the trauma that we go through and we never deal with in our communities has conditioned us to be a certain way. And here I am traveling, I come back and I fall right back into that same space. And it took my manager to snap me out of it. Like, fool, you just came back from such and such. He's watching you on TV. He's not looking at you because he has a beef with you. So, you know, the mindset changes. And it makes you understand, too, of the mindset of the people who don't come from where you come from because they're looking at things totally different.
Right. It's crazy because when you think about it, why does it always have to be someone is staring at you because they have a problem with you when they could actually be admiring you? They could like your shirt, like what you have on or something. But you know, oftentimes when you're growing up in that kind of environment, there's almost like a 2 second rule, right? Like you got to
Yeah.
react immediately. Um, and
Hmm.
like you said, like the trauma that you experience, it's a shame because obviously you know you see it every day. I know from being a councilman, from being a part of your
Oh, yeah.
community, and you see the things that are normalized that shouldn't be
Hmm. And a
normalized,
whole nother level, too,
right?
right? That's a whole nother level of it.
Because
I seen
right,
it.
because like you're
I'm sorry.
seeing it and it's not normal. It's not normal to experience, right? But we normalize it because it's a regular occurrence. Like hearing gunshots or seeing people die in front of you, these different things. You know, so many incidents of untreated PTSD because these things are just they're not supposed to be for you to digest. You know, a part of your diet because diet is more than just what you consume as far as you know, foods, drinks. It's up here too in your brain, and it's a shame.
Super fact. Yeah, definitely, man. You know, we have to be careful of our diets too, man. You know, the mental intake is very important too, what we put into our minds, not just our bodies. So you definitely have a point with that.
Yeah, and just like you were talking about earlier with manifestation, right? The things that you take into your brain, that's what you put into existence,
True.
right? Just
So
like
true.
whatever you consume, like especially like on social media, when you look at your feed, what does your feed consume consist of?
Right, right. Look at your feed and see what you're looking at. You know,
Right.
what does your feed mean? What is you know, what's coming down your timeline? And that's true to reality in real life, you know. What's coming down your timeline in real life? Is it, you know, are you talking life? Are you talking death?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. And you've been in hip hop for 3 decades now. That's amazing.
Ah, bah, bah,
That
bah,
is
bah, bah, bah,
amazing.
bah.
Right. You've watched the culture grow and change in so many ways and witnessed so many pivotal moments, right? You had
Mhm.
friendships with both Biggie and Pac.
Yeah,
You just spoke about, you know, what are you talking about all the time? You talking about life, you talking about death. It brings up how you know, Pac was definitely talking about death a lot of times, you know. What was that time period like during the East Coast and West Coast beef?
Man, it was a tense time. It was a tense time for people who had friends on both sides. You know, when you friends with Pop and you friends with Biggie, that's a tense time when you see your two homies going at it. You know, and how do you get into the middle of that? Being a young man, being 21 to 25 years old, without picking a side. You know, so you tended to stay out of it, but you didn't think that the course of action will take it that well, both of them will lose their lives. You thought maybe the worst, they might have a fist fight and become friends again. But what it really showed was the power and the influence of the culture of hip hop. You know, magazines ran with it because it sold magazines. Interviewers and disc jockeys, DJs, radio DJs, and VJs, they ran with it because it brought viewership to their networks. But what it did to the culture, what it did to the families, the Shakur family, what it did to you know Christopher Wallace family, their loved ones and friends, what it did to the culture of hip hop is sad.
Yeah, most definitely. And I can't imagine being that such young of an age, right? Especially because they say, you know, men we develop later, so like our brains are still developing at that
Yeah.
time. Finding the verbiage, finding the way to communicate to both sides, like, hey, how can we put an end to this? So, what did you have any conversations with both sides at that time about, hey, like, how can we put an end to this?
I didn't have a specific conversation with Biggie or Pac about the beef, but I was around a lot of times when it was discussed. And I'm not a lot of times, but a few times when it was discussed, like being in the studio with Big and just hearing him say, you know, man, he'll get over that. Like he loved Pop. You know, he was like, man, you know, it's like talking about one of your friends, like he'll come around, he'll get over that. You know, whereas Pac felt disrespected. You know, he felt like you disrespected me. You know, and it was just two sides of it. You know, Big was nonchalant about it. Pac was, man, we don't like that. You know, and I'm gonna make you feel just as disrespected as you made me feel.
Yeah, and then I was watching Drink Champs, your guys' interview on Drink Champs, and the way that you explained like how his blood would boil, right? Situation
Mm-hmm.
with being in the car with Janet Jackson, like, you know, just
Mm-hmm.
those different things. Like Pac was a amazing person, very passionate. You know,
Very,
whatever
very
it very
passionate.
whatever it is that
Very passionate.
he was very passionate about it. So so the when you were speaking with Biggie and he said he would get over it, was this post hit him up or before?
I think it might have been it was post hit him up, I believe. Like, you know, Biggie didn't really think like too much of it. Like he didn't. You can tell he wasn't thinking. At least he portrayed that it didn't bother him really. Like this is something that had come around.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't really show us the people around him that he really cared that much. Big was a funny guy too, man. He was a funny guy, a big guy that the girls loved. You know, so he had a humor about him that you know everything was just jovial.
And I think that a lot of people don't realize that they died at 24 and 25,
Yeah.
right? It's like the amount that they were able to accomplish at such a young age. It's truly unfortunate that they didn't get to live to see 50 years old because
Oof.
I mean, you know, when you see like even other celebrities, like actors or something, like Robert Downey Jr., right? He was wilding out at one point, but he got to live to, you know, make up for his mistakes or, you know, laugh at those moments. But they didn't get to do that. And it really makes you think like, where would they be at in life now had that moment passed and cooler heads had prevailed or whatever the situation may be?
Yeah, man. I just cry out to all of the young people out there, man, our youthful people. You're allowed to make mistakes. And if you're allowed to make mistakes, that means that your peers are allowed to make mistakes as well. I just ask the young people and cry out to the young people that when somebody makes them a mistake, allow them to get over it and grow. Because if they grow, they might not be the same person that made that mistake against you, by you, near you. Just mistake, period. You know, sometimes when you're allowed to grow, like you said, the Robert Downey Jr., you know, he's a different man. Let him grow into manhood. Let them become men. If it's that important to you, fist fight. But nobody wants to fist fight anymore. Nobody wants to do that. You
Right.
know, deal with it in a situation that you get to go home and live another day. Because if Tupac was still alive, I'm sure at minimum he would have been mayor of Baltimore or mayor of Oakland. You know, if Biggie was still alive, Biggie could be a billionaire instead of Jay-Z, or both of them. You know what I mean? So I'm sure that the lives would be changed of so many different people if they were still here, and the life and the culture of hip hop would be altered in a certain way that's unexplainable.
And how beautiful would that have been for hip hop to help change the narrative, right? Of how artists are able to become so much more rather than what they've been stereotypically shown to be.
Yeah, I mean, controlling the narrative is very important. You know, some people don't like rappers. Some of our seniors don't like rappers. Uh, then you have some people on another note who don't like politicians. So I am the person now in position who can actually speak directly and counter those negative narratives. And we can talk about it and change the narrative of what a rapper is. We can talk about and change what the narrative of a politician is seen to be. Because now you have somebody who comes directly from the hip hop culture, who can talk to those who do not like rap and who can talk to those who do not like politicians. We control the narrative. And when I say we, the hip hop culture, because we have a representative that is at the table.
Right. And for you, how amazing is it to witness the power of hip hop? Because early on they were saying, "Oh, this is just going to last for a couple of years. This is just going to be a fad or whatever." And then to see that it became the number one music of the world. I mean, you go to any country, is there's a form of hip hop there, right? The amount of influence, inspiration is provided. You turn on a commercial, they're rapping in the commercial. You know what I mean? Like the commercialization of it as well. Like, what is that like for you to witness?
Oh, it's amazing, man. It's amazing. It just shows that when you truly believe in something, when you truly plug the power of thought, of consistency, of passion, of talent into an empty bucket, it can be filled up. And that's what we did. We took the culture of hip hop, took nothing and made masterpiece out of it. And we have always done that. And when I say we, I'm talking about black and brown people. We have always taken the less of everything and turning it into the most of everything. Hip hop is now the pop culture. In my young 52 years of age, I've always known whatever the pop culture was moved society forward. It sells products. It's used in advertising. It's used in education. It's used to get elected officials elected. The pop culture, everybody thought it was going to be R&B was going to live forever, and now R&B had to tag along and grab the coattails of hip hop just to survive. So the hip hop culture, rap music, more so the culture, just like Funky Man said in Chief Rocker, we live for the funk, die for the funk, walk, talk. If you take funk out of there and replace that with the word hip hop, that's how we live in this culture.
Yeah, it's most definitely is pop culture, right? I mean, it's in sports. It's integrated into like everything
Church.
you can imagine, right? And it's I always say that do not consume the culture unless you're going to fight for the people that created the culture,
Right.
unless you
You talking
care
good
about the
talk.
people from the culture, right? Because it kind of brings in the whole how the culture vulture ideology, right? If you're going to be a part of this, you need to care about those that came before you, or those that helped build this up. Um, and that's really important. And I think that's one negative aspect about the commercialization of hip hop, because of how it integrated into commercials and into these other things, where it makes you wonder, do these people have the best interest of the people that created this, that represent what this really is?
Well, I think that the first 50 years of hip hop set a firm foundation for us to build off of. Firm foundation. We even got some B words out of it, some billionaires, you know.
Right.
But what does the next 50 years look like? What does that foundation grow into? Is that a union? Is that people like myself who become elected officials fighting for it through policy and politics? You know, great ideas are great ideas and anybody could utilize them. But when you turn that great idea into something that is tangible, it becomes much more than that. And I think that if we start turning our great hip hop ideas into policy, then our people will be protected for a lifetime.
Yeah, most definitely. I do think that we need a union, because those that helped lay the groundwork, there was not a lot of money in hip hop as much as it is now. And, they never got to see the fruits of that labor, right? And
Right.
there's no reason why the forefathers should be dying, or, in a position of financial strain. It's just ridiculous to see that happen. So there has to be some way that we can all come together and ensure that the people that laid the groundwork are taken care of.
I totally agree. And I think it's deserved, so and that will be honorable for us to pay back our forefathers that way. You know, you know what they say that they're looking for reparations. Let's give some of our forefathers of hip hop their reparations. They built this,
Right.
so they deserve reparations.
And what better way than to take control and take back the culture, and be like, we're going to take care of our own.
Right. And that's exactly right. And how do you take back uh, a multi-billion-dollar industry? You have to do it through lobbying. You have to do it by partnering with those who are directly in the culture right now. And it has to be solidified with some type of policies that can be made legislation.
Yeah, and I want to shout out Big Lou, because he's the one that helped set up this interview. That's my big
Shout out
bro.
to Big Low. That's
Yeah.
my
When
brother.
I spoke to Lou, he really emphasized how much you love your community and all the good work that you do, right? Can you speak to that, and what inspired you to give back and for you to become a councilman?
Man, there's so many different cogs to that wheel, right? That make me say that I wanted to become a councilman, because that was never a want of mine. That was never a thought that I would become councilman. Like I say, all the time, it's that journey, that highway of life that you get on, and you have a destination in mind. But once you get on that highway, you see your headlights see 200 feet in front of you. You start seeing as you move. When you're standing still, it sees 200 feet in front of you. But as you move, you see another 200 feet, another 200 feet. You start to see on ramps and off ramps and destination signs that you didn't even realize you would have an interest in getting off and exploring. And you start to explore. It doesn't mean that you're not going to your destination, but you learn, you gather knowledge, you pick it up, you put it in your vehicle, and you continue on with your journey. It becomes part of your life. And I think that's what happened with me. I love my city so much that I remember one day, my manager at the time, Hafiz Fareed, I had on Newark on my hats. I've been wearing Newark on my hats and clothing for years. I had a Newark shirt on and a Newark hat on. And all of these have receipts. If you look back in my videos and all of that type of stuff, we've been doing this. And he said to me one day, he was like, "What have you done for Newark lately?" So I got defensive, which means what
Mm.
lately. I wear Newark on my hats. I went Newark on my clothes, and he's looking at me like, all right, but what have you done for Newark lately? And he stumped me. And I was like, wow, what have I done for my city? And at that moment, when I do a show, I make sure that I come back and bring that hip hop money back to the community. I started, you know, live now. Excuse me, Laugh Now, Cry Later, the Drama Squad nonprofit organization where we went into schools putting on plays for young people about pregnancy and teenage drug usage and things of that nature. Any problem that our youth encountered, we got awards for it. And then it made me start to get attached to the youth who were getting older, and they graduate high school and they remembered, and it started to say, man, I have to do more. I have to make more people aware. And it started to put me, to create another nonprofit as I got older called 211 Community Impact, where we focused on literacy and education. So it brought me directly to the residents of the community, doing things in the community that made me say, I ain't now he can't ever ask me that again. You
Mm.
can't ever ask me. See, it's all about receipts. If you do something, somebody doesn't have to. Somebody can say that they don't, never like any rhymes I ever said, and that's cool. They still sold a million records, you know, and there's a million people who didn't buy them. So there's always a yin and yang, you know. If somebody says I don't like your rhymes, you don't have to like them, but I have receipts of its success in a certain way. And I thought the same way with community. You don't have to understand or like what I'm doing in the community, but my manager will never be able to ask me what have I done for Newark lately, and me not being able to answer.
Right. And I think what's amazing about what you said is just there's more to than just shouting out your city.
Right? It
Right.
is.
You know what I mean? Like that's great and all, but what are you really doing to change things? Right? You know what it was like growing up in that community and all the pitfalls, the dangers, the different things that you can fall into as a youth. So now that I'm in a better position, why don't I go ahead and take advantage of the position that I'm in to help those coming up, because sometimes all it takes is really just that one person to inspire you, as a child or something. When you're very impressionable, they see you out there doing your thing and they're like, you know what, I want to grow up and be like that instead.
Right.
Right, I want that representation to see people that look like me are capable of doing just that.
Facts.
And I think what's amazing is, like, I looked at your Instagram and I'm just like, man, like he's in the office, but he got the new work hat on, he got the bucket hat on, like he's still keeping
Yeah.
it funky.
Yeah. Yeah. I even got my plaque up here on the wall, man.
Right, yeah. So I
You know?
think that's great because people are more likely going to be listening to you because you know the circumstances in which they come from.
And that's a lot of responsibility, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you have the ear of people, utilize it in the right way. Do your best, better your best. Don't mislead them, because now you're messing it up for people who look like you that are coming behind you to do the same thing. You want them to be listened to more than what you will listen to, not less than what you will listen to. And that's only going to come from you doing what you need to do and setting the road and setting the roadmap and the pathway for other people to listen to you. Because if I do all of that, if I don't dress like them, I don't walk like them, I look different, and it attracts those who look different, and then I start talking like them and telling lies or not living up to my transparency, then what was it all for? Then somebody else has to come along and start again, start anew. And we want this to continue on. We want people to come and be better than me. We want people from the hip hop culture to understand that there's so many avenues, so many pathways to help our culture. Everybody doesn't have to be an MC. Everybody doesn't have to be a politician. Everybody just has to be in order to help our culture succeed.
Right. And it's a lot of responsibility, like you said. But
Yep.
being a part of the culture doesn't mean you have to rap, doesn't mean you have to DJ, but it's still something that you can feel deep in your heart and that you love and that you really care for and try to give back. I think that it's always about not just taking from the culture, but what are you bringing back to the culture?
That's right. That's right. What are you giving? It's a give and take, right? They
Absolutely.
waving me along saying I got 5 minutes, but
Yeah, yeah, no doubt.
yeah.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much for, taking the time to meet with me today. I think it was an amazing conversation. We touched on so many different things, and I'm really looking forward to the people being able to see the interview. Is there anything else that you want to go ahead and share before we end it?
Man, I just want to say on August 11th, I have some music coming out. It's an album I did with my cousin, my mother's brother's daughter. First cousins. We have a project coming out together that we call the Cousins, um, inspired by our grandmother that we never met. She died when my mother was 15 and her father was 9. But we always felt like her energy is what stuck by us and made us have this artful entertainment type of personality. So we have an album coming out that's entitled by her name, which is Alma, Alma, on hip hop's birthday, which is actually our grandmother's birthday, 8/11.
Wow.
So it's just inspired by our grandmother. It's by the Cousins, which features Do It All and Fatima, and the album is called Eight. It's called Elma on is come releasing on 8/11. So just staying in the gym, just keeping them jabs sharp. I'm never gonna stop being hip hop. And on another note, where on the political side, we're touring around the world, explaining how to use arts and entertainment to foster change in community through policy and politics. So we're just continuing to work, and we have some great work that we've done in the Westwater, Newark, New Jersey, and we're going to continue to do it, and we're going to continue to do it all for the culture.
You living up to the name, do it all, because he's really out here doing it all. Seriously.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, man. I'm gonna say we're gonna end it here. Peace and love, man.
Hey, man, hey, shout out to my homie, man. I know that's my guy, man. Trenton, what's up? What's up? So thank you for the interview, and salute to you.